Welcome to Sports Management Podcast, where you will hear interesting sports management professionals share their stories, experiences, and passion for the sports management industry. I am your host, Marcus Philipson. This episode is sponsored by InSport Education, the online business school for sport. Is it time for you to kickstart your career or take it to the next level? InSport Education offers a wide range of different courses, so head over to their website right now. Check the link in the description below. And as always, with the code Sports Management Podcast 10, you get 10% off all of their courses. Now, let me introduce today's guest. Today's guest is Prantik Mazumdar, the Managing Director for CXM Group in Singapore. Prantik is an entrepreneur and venture investor and acts as a digital transformation catalyst in organizations to drive sustainable change and impact. Get ready to learn how Prantik's passion for sport started, about his sport tech ventures, including multi-language video content, sport NFTs, sport education, and more, his entrepreneurial career journey in and outside of the sports industry, and much more. Prantik Mazumdar, welcome to the Sports Management Podcast.
Hi, everyone. Hello, Marcus. Thank you so much for having me on your show, and looking forward to having a wonderful conversation with you about sports and the business of sports and impact on sports and life.
Me too. So first introducing you. You are the managing director for CXM Group based in Singapore. You are an entrepreneur, venture investments, and help out with a lot of different aspects. So can you explain a little bit in your own words what it is that you do?
Yeah, certainly. Look, life has been kind. I've grown up across 3 countries. I'm originally from India, which is where my love for sports developed. Primarily started with cricket, and then, it's obviously ventured into various aspects of sports and also the business of sports. And then I had moved to Indonesia for about 5 years. And for the last 21 years, I've been in Singapore. So, very much in Asia, with a focus on Southeast Asia and India. And my career has been a mixed bag. I was trained as a computer engineer. I did a minor in technopreneurship. And after that, I started my career with the Singapore government. Singapore being an island city-state, a very small but very enterprising country with a lot of different industries, a lot of enterprising companies and people. And my role was to helping those companies export and, expand into the world, because Singapore is a very, very tiny city and country. And thereafter, I moved to the private sector. I moved into brand consulting and marketing before starting my own entrepreneurial journey, where I started a company called Happy Marketer as a co-founder, where over the last 12 years, we've been helping brands digitize and market themselves and build their brands through digital technologies and data-driven principles. And I did have an exit there 3 years ago when we sold the company to Dentsu, and I'm now part of the Dentsu Group. So that's my day job. But over the last 3 years, I've also been an active angel investor in all things digital technology, software as a service, as well as sports. Sports technology is a big part of my life. Like I said, sports has had a massive influence on me as an individual and entrepreneur. And one of those companies where I'm a strategic advisor is called Rev Sports, where it's a sports media tech company. And again, it's based out of India, but eventually we aspire to take it to the world. And our hope is to, right now, we're basically using the power of digital storytelling to help tell stories about not just sports, but the business of sports, the people on the field and off the field, various aspects about sports, such as diversity, equity, inclusion, anti-doping, about how the commercialization of sports happens. So it's a massively interesting space for me. That's a bit of my 40-year-old life and 20-year career in a nutshell.
Wow, that's amazing. And so many different roads you have taken, from engineering, entrepreneurship, marketing, and now all of this in some way integrated into the sports industry. So yeah, you mentioned it a little bit there. You are consulting on services around the digital aspect, sponsorships, anti-doping. So if we dig in a little bit into that, what is it that you consult on?
Yeah, certainly. So there are 3 broad aspects, really. One is we use digital technology, whether it's social media, mobile apps, to tell stories about sports and the athletes and people administering and managing sports. It's a whole host of fun. So today it covers right from, global sports like soccer to cricket to tennis to even Olympic and Paralympic sports. And one thing that I want to sort of share is we've seen the magic of the big sports, the big athletes, the Federers and the Nadals and the Ronaldos and the Kohlis of the world. They get a lot of love and attention, because they are stars, they are stellar brands. But I think moment we've used the same digital channels and platforms to tell the stories of the Olympic athletes who may not have had got that amount of love and attention, or the Paralympic athletes especially, or women athletes. It's amazing the impact it has had on the individual in terms of their careers or in terms of their confidence. And also by storytelling, they've managed to attract a lot of followership and hence a lot of commercial interest from sponsors. So that's digital storytelling to really tell the behind the scenes, the backstage stories of athletes and people who manage sports and athletes. The second is the whole area of franchise sports, sponsorship, the commercial angle. So we work with a lot of sporting properties, again, in those similar sports to help connect brands and corporates with the world of sports and athletes. So we sort of advise them on how to bid on certain franchisees, what are the different models to look at, what athletes to look at and what athletes not to look at. Once you sponsor or you buy a franchise, how best to monetize it through various avenues. Sponsorship essentially sort of advising the brands and corporates. And the third is, in terms of corporate social responsibility and microfunding. There are a lot of brands who want to give back to athletes, to sports, or who want to use to help the underprivileged. So, for example, there's an entity called Magic Bus in India. Magic Bus, a wonderful entity, not for profit, which connects brands who want to use sports as a mechanism to give back to society. And the entity sort of takes those funds to not just take care of underprivileged children, but also to use that as a mechanism, to use sports as a mechanism to galvanize kids together, to sort of bring unity, to give them lessons in life, and to show them a path that, sports can be a great unifier, can teach you lessons, and it can open up career opportunities. And so we sort of work with organizations like those around the world, where we connect with brands, we work with organizations like those to sort of help them commercialize and help them achieve their objectives. We're also working on an initiative for microfunding. On LinkedIn, Facebook, very often we see posts from athletes who say, look, I'm number 10 in in this particular category, but I'm looking for $10,000 of sponsorship. If I get this, I'll be able to progress my goals in life. And very often we see those posts go viral with 1 million likes. But that sort of, probed us thinking, what if instead of just 1 million likes through social media, we could help raise $100,000 or $10,000 for these athletes? And that's an initiative we're working on. It's work in progress. That can we use the principles of microfunding to allow people like you and me to not just like or comment on posts, but to literally make a contribution of $1, $10, whatever that you can, because that can be a massive game changer for a budding athlete. So yeah, that's a bit of an overview of what we are trying to do at Rev Sports.
The last part there, is that kind of a GoFundMe campaign, but for athletes to accelerate their career?
You can say so. So, in GoFundMe, that's right. You can put up campaigns and a lot of athletes have been funded. We're trying to sort of democratizing it, where we're saying we want to look at holistically, where you could get funding from corporates, you could get funding from government bodies, and you can also get funding from individuals like you and me, right? And again, we're trying to try different models, right? That's why I said it's work in progress, that an athlete could put up their sort of campaign and they could get funded for 10,000, 50,000, whatever that is. But I think what we also want to see is beyond the money, what is it that the athlete can achieve or gain from people? You could gain followership. Again, we also want to look at the other side. What can the audience get? Of course, they feel good when the athlete sort of competes and does well. But, if certain athlete does well in their life, could they sort of get some sort of equity, a minor equity share in his or her eventual gains, right? So GoFundMe obviously has done a great job, and I think the donation model is great. But we also come with the belief that, these can't be sustainable just with a charitable mode. There has to be a commercially sustainable mode. So a lot of corporates, for example, there is a body in India called IIS, Inspire. It's run by a conglomerate called the Jindals, and they have two arms. There's one arm which picks and backs athletes for 10, 12 years. If you do well in life, if you win medals, and if you get sponsorship, we're going to be your manager for a long period of time, and we'll take 10, 15% fees. So we are saying, why can't we do that at a democratic level where each individual, whoever contributes, gets a minor share? So there's a bit of skin in the game. You feel good about someone else's success. And hopefully, when you get to plow back that money or a part of the profit into a new athlete.
So basically, essentially, you are buying stock into the athletes. That's what you're saying, right?
That's right. That's beyond the donations. You can be a equitable part of the athlete's commercial success.
That's very interesting.
Yes, indeed. We're hoping we can sort of bring this to life because, again, that's the beauty, right? I mean, theoretically, the idea sounds brilliant, but depending on which market you do this, there are legal regulations and challenges to sort of get over because, each market has very nuanced regulation in terms of who do you collect the money from, the KYC, how does the repatriation happen?
So in what market do you think that you have the best opportunities to start? Is it in Asia where you are located, or is it in Europe, in North America? Where do you see the biggest opportunities?
Right now we're starting with Asia. I mean, India and Southeast Asia, primarily because, again, most of the co-founders are based in this part of the world, India, Dubai, Singapore, Indonesia. Also, we feel, obviously, coming from Asia, we understand, we have the connections and the network, we understand the cultural nuances. And to be honest, compared to many Western markets where I'm sure this could work, we just find that economically, sports and athletes are far behind compared to many in the West. So we think there's a genuine opportunity to make an impact here. So we'll begin with Asia, India, that is South Asia and Southeast Asia. And if all goes well, then we'll look towards the West.
That's very exciting. And I know that you're working with some other sports tech ventures, multi-language video content, some NFT work. So can you talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, of course. That's the beauty of the digital storytelling component. Today, when we look at the world of sport, everything predominantly is in English or some of the more globally prevalent languages such as French or German or Spanish. But we feel that, I think we want to do two things. We want to democratize the creation of sporting content, which means, why just limit it to a well-known author or a journalist? You and I, maybe we love sports that is not very popular. Maybe it's, some sort of skating or some sort of martial arts, maybe in Japan. And so why can't you and I sort of create content, be it in written form or digital video form, given that all of us have some sort of smartphones in the world today? And why can't we create that in the local vernacular language, right? So that's one of the things that we're trying to do is open up access, allowing people to create content from their respective cities or homes in their preferred language on via a mobile device. And I think technology can allow us to sort of, templatize certain things. It allows us to train people to say, what sort of content will work, what's the ideal time limit. I think a lot of the best practices and standardization can be brought in through AI and technology. But at the end of the day, what we really want is someone sitting in Morocco should be able to access a sporting content on his or her mobile device in a language he or she is comfortable with, for example, right? So that's one, is on the supply side, democratizing because, that's the creator economy we are living in. The other is, connecting fans and sporting athletes. And again, all of these themes that you see is really for the middle and the bottom of the pyramid. So I'm not talking about the big superstars who are, who have enough and more opportunities. But for me, it's about the middle and the bottom of the pyramid in various sporting properties across socioeconomic cultures. We want to ensure that even if they are niche, they should have, the sports stars should have the opportunity to connect with the fans and also to be able to monetize because, sports is such an industry. Most athletes probably have 5 to 10 years to sort of make their mark. But what happens after that, right? We're likely to live for 80 to 100 years. If an athlete finishes, best case, stretches their career to 40, you still have 60 years to live. And that's where we think using blockchains and NFTs, because not every athlete is going to get a Nike to sponsor them. But we feel we can use digital technologies such as blockchain and NFTs to allow fans to connect with their superstars in their niche sports. We can allow these superstars, the sporting athletes, to create their own NFTs, be it their NFTs of a special moment from their career, or whether it's an image or a video, be it their jerseys. So we want to be able to allow, the whole philosophy is, how do we allow athletes to connect with their niche fan bases? You could just have 50,000 fans, but how can they connect? And how could there be a commercial angle for them to be able to monetize, their talents beyond just what they do on the field? So that's where we sort of, in fact, last year in Christmas, we did an NFT-led auction for women cricketers in India. It's amazing that, cricket is like a religion in India, but it's predominantly for the men's version. In fact, it's only yesterday that finally, after so many years, the cricket body has announced that men and women will earn the same salaries, exactly equal rates for their sports. But the truth of the matter is, whilst that is amazing, that's a game changer. But the reality is that, unfortunately, women don't play, even 50% of the number of games that men play. So whilst the law is good, the opportunity doesn't exist yet to actually make the same kind of money. So we did an auction for the India's national team, which is the Asia Cup champions. They are the fourth best team in the world, but they don't have economic opportunities. But when we used NFTs to sort of allow fans to connect with their women sporting heroes, it was amazing, because they were able to sell NFTs of digital NFTs of their sporting jerseys or special moments and any other archives. They were able to raise, rather earn pretty decent amount of money just from digital NFTs. And we were merely facilitators, and we took a platform fee. So that was a pilot project last Christmas, but that gave us a lot of hope that there is alternative commercial models beyond just your traditional sponsorship and broadcasting revenues.
Yeah, that's very innovative, and you answered my question in there that you provide a platform, and that was the same for the first part with the connecting between fans and athletes. That's also that what your company is doing, is that you provide that platform for the athlete and the fans to interact.
That's right. So we are a tech company that provides a platform connecting athletes with brands and fans, because in that whole sporting ecosystem, the four key elements of that ecosystem are the athletes, the governing bodies, the fans, and the brands, right? And our role is to find unique opportunities to connect either two or more, to find economic opportunities which helps all four.
So what differs from that platform versus interacting with your fans on, let's say, Twitter or Instagram, for example?
Yeah, so I think I'm a big fan of Twitter and Instagram. I think what Twitters and Instagrams have done in the last decade is they've, again, democratized access. And today, a fan can feel that, wow, I can tweet to a Ronaldo, I can tweet to Rapinoe, I can tweet to someone that I adore or idolize. But it's at most a platform where you can sort of communicate, or you can see footages, images, which is great. But I think where they sort of fall short, at least for now, is commercial opportunities. So you've seen platforms like Patreon, where now you can monetize. You can get custom videos. So that's an interesting extension of that. But I don't think beyond communication, these platforms allow for much. For example, getting custom or personalized messages, or being able to shop. Like, I know, if I would love to have the opportunity, if I see my sporting hero use a particular equipment or wear a particular jersey, why can't I just click and buy? So social commerce is a huge one. In fact, there is a particular company in India that I'm in. We're in sort of commercial talks with. It's called Achiever. They are basically building India's largest sports social commerce, and the platform allows you to not just interact with your sporting heroes through content. There is a Patreon equivalent to get personalized messages. But for example, and this is not just for Indian athletes. For example, Victor Axelsen, the badminton superstar, if he or she is wearing a particular gear, the platform basically, I can click on the image, I can get a quick metadata about his kit bag, what racket, what socks, what shoes, what hairband, and I can just choose to buy it, right? So I think, to me, the opportunity is personalization of content as well as social commerce. I think those are two areas where the current platforms haven't really gotten into. Of course, they can. these are massively well-funded companies, public listed. They can choose to, or maybe eventually they'll acquire some of these companies that I'm talking about.
This area is, it feels endless. It's so many opportunities, and you have dug into quite a few of them.
Yeah, sports, again, I personally, again, I could be biased as a lover of sports. Sports is one of those fields and content which is so exciting because, there's nothing close to me, at least for me, in terms of excitement compared to live sports, because of the excitement, because of the uncertainty, because of the vast diversity of sporting options available in the world. And so if you start thinking of sports as a content property that provides excitement, inspiration, I just think now the question begs is, what are the different commercial opportunities available? Because if you look at any sporting property, there broadly been four revenue models. Either, gate revenues for seats, which are always limited because you can only have 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 people watching live. Of course, then you have digital broadcast OTT, which has completely changed the economics of many sporting properties. Then you have brand sponsorship and merchandise. So these are four, but I think there can be more. Like I said, those two or three examples, whether it's video storytelling, whether it's social commerce, whether it's, of course, there are many legal betting or fantasy gaming platforms that have come in. So I think we are seeing the emergence of just different business models, which are not just the beauty for me in terms of technology and digital is not just to chase for the big, well-known sports or the big athletes. It's about tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. And I think that's where it'll take time because at the end of the day, attention spans are limited and there is a bit of a volume play. But yeah, I think that's the opportunity for the next couple of decades at least.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned attention span, and one other venture is sports education. So is that online classes, something similar?
That's right. The idea really came about, again, from a personal experience. Growing up when I was 15, if you asked me what was my dream or hope, my dream and hope would have been to play cricket for India, for example, right? But very soon I realized I wasn't good enough or I didn't have the right opportunities. But my love and passion for sports and cricket remained. But I had no idea, what do I need to do to become a sports lawyer or to become a sports journalist or a sports commentator or a sports marketer? And to me, that's a massively missed out opportunity. So that's the other thing. We said, look, today you have the Coursera's of the world, you have the YouTubes of the world. The idea is, how do we get the right sporting curriculum personalized and in bite-sized format, accessible to people around the world? And of course, there are various models to monetize it, as we have seen with the likes of Udemy and Coursera. It could be subscription-led, advertisement-led, etc. But what really matters there is, not just the content or the curriculum, but, in any education business, there has to be good curriculum, good teachers, certification that's credible, and there has to be a linkage to, it's not just good enough to have a certification, but what happens next? Can there be access to internship and employment opportunity? So that's what we're working towards. We are in talks with professors, folks from well-known universities in Cambridge, Oxford, and in the US. There's already a lot of literature and content in terms of sports, some of the sporting domains I spoke about. But now the job is to sort of make that into relevant, accessible curriculum. That's one part of it. Then, of course, to partner with some of these legitimate, well-known, credible institutions who can then sort of provide certifications. And then the third one would be, how do you sort of convert that certification into some sort of opportunity for employment? Because, a degree alone is not good enough. So, that's the other leg, that we're sort of working towards. We're starting with this part of the world in Asia, but I just think this is a massive opportunity because, you just need talent. As the sporting ecosystem grows, you need qualified talent across so many domains in the world of sport.
Definitely. And I think the last aspect that you said there with the internship opportunities or job opportunities, that's super important. And as you said, you get your diploma, but you also need to get out there and get a chance.
That's right.
Yeah, you mentioned it that you were a cricketer, and as I've understood it, you were doing pretty well. Was that when your love for sports started?
Yeah, my love for sports began probably when I was 8 or 9 years old. I just was born in a family where sports was a big part of our personalized dinner table conversations, be it cricket, be it watching tennis, Wimbledon, be it watching some of the Olympic sports. Cricket was obviously a big one. I started playing cricket around 7 or 8. And and then started going to sort of watch matches in stadiums. And that's when the love for sports became. But the business element of sports came in much later, probably when I was in university. And it's only then did I realize, wow, this is such a massive opportunity. This is I never thought as to what went behind the programming of sports in the broadcasting world and journalism and physiotherapy. It really happened when I came to Singapore to pursue computer engineering, and I played cricket for my university. And our coach was Australian, Mr. Late Grant Stanley, wonderful gentleman. He used to play for Australia at some point in time, and then he was our coach in Singapore, and he took us to Australia for a wonderful 1 week course, was rather 1 week tournament, and it was like an exchange program. We lived with the families of the opponent team members. So we traveled in a caravan from county to county, and every county we went, we stayed with the family. And I remember after one of the matches, I was having a beer with one of these players, and I asked him, "Hey, what's your career plan?" And he said, "Look, I'm still going to try for cricket, but I also want to if that doesn't work out, I want to be a sports nutritionist." Wow, that opened my eyes. I said, "Wow, I had no idea there's something called sports nutrition," and this is in 2003. And that sort of piqued my interest. I said, "Look, I need to find out more about this." And then I started researching, and one thing led to the other, and I realized, wow, there is a world of. And I got into marketing eventually. I realized, wow, how big is sports sponsorship and marketing? How big is by then cricket in India was turning into a massive commercial opportunity with the advent of the Indian Premier League, which today is the largest cricketing property globally. It's a 74-day window in a very short format. It's basically sort of influenced by the EPL in Europe, is saying, hey, how can we make club and franchise level cricket bigger than national level? And it's 15 years. It's completely changed the game, in so many angles today. Because, for the national team, only 11 or 20 people get selected. But with IPL and franchise level cricket, with so much of entertainment, with so much of brand support, even there are so many wonderful examples of men and women from poor villages who have made a career. Again, they may never play for the national team, but they have made a fantastic career thanks to the commercial opportunity. So yeah, that's when my love for sports started early, but my love for the business of sports probably is about 20-year-old when I went to that inspiring trip to Australia.
And now you have 20 years of professional experience. So what would be your best advice for young people who has aspirations to work in sports?
My advice to them would be, I think two things, right? One at a generic level, that, if you're in university, college, and you're pursuing a degree, doesn't matter what, could be accounting, could be marketing, could be engineering. Don't box yourself. That just because you're an accountant doesn't mean you have to be an accountant all your life. The point of university education is not just the degree, but the thought process, the problem-solving attitude, exposure to people and various thought processes. So keep an open mind. It's too early. If you're living till 80, 100, don't make these decisions early. Number two is, I think if you want to explore something in the world of sports, it is really about going deep by immersing yourself with practical experience. So, find your college team. See, can you be a manager? Put up your hand. Can you be a financial manager? Can you help raise funds for your local community sporting clubs? If you're interested in nutrition and medicine, can you just be that, that physio and the doctor? Or can you sort of, do some internship under a regulated doctor to understand what goes into sports nutrition? So I would say, degrees are fine, but really try and get as much exposure as possible in your first 5 formative years of university or just after university to just get some pragmatic experience. The last thing I would say is what really helped me is doing some primary research on what I call the value chain of the sports industry. And I wish I had done this earlier in my life. It's only, when I came through some reports from Deloitte and PwC on the sporting industry. Till I read those reports, I never understood how sports got funded, how did players make money, who is paying, what are the revenue models. So one thing that, a simple tip is, this is just at your fingertips on Google, just Google sports industry report, McKinsey or PwC or Deloitte. Every year they publish a wonderful report, and this will give you a very good understanding of which are the largest sporting leagues in the world, who are the financial backers, what are the business models. And if you study and follow this every year, I think your eyes and ears will, and your mind will open up, and you'll be like, wow, I never had an idea that crypto or NFT had a linkage with sports. Oh wow, I didn't know what blockchain could do in the world of sports. So it's really about exposure through broad primary research and reading, and also to couple that with some pragmatic experience on the ground. So that would be my advice for any young, budding talent who wants to explore a career in sports. And fundamentally, keep playing or watching sports, keep that passion alive. Because if that passion is there, that will ignite a lot of joy and inspiration as you sort of figure out eventually what's your calling in the world of sports.
Yeah, that's great advice. And if you have had a long career, it's seldom a straight line. So have you experienced any bumps on the road in your career? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, bumps are and that's the beauty, right? Play sports. One of the biggest lessons from sports is you fail more often than you succeed. You take a look at any super athlete, whether it's Muhammad Ali, whether it's Magic Johnson, whether it's Jordan, whether it's Kohli in cricket, it's ebbs and flows. And you probably fail more often than you win. And the lesson there is, look, you've got to follow the process. You've got to believe in your process, keep improving the process, show up, especially when you're failing, and your time will come. You may not become a superstar, but the idea is to achieve your potential, to live to the best of your ability, right? And so by playing and watching sports, that definitely helped. And so there were, a couple of bumps that comes to mind is, especially as an entrepreneur, funding is a challenge. Or, when you lose big clients, like I still remember July 5th, 2015, a big lesson in my life was we had a client, an education client in our digital marketing business. And it was great. For 5 years, they were our largest client. But one fine day, 5th July, we were called and we said, look, we are going to change agencies and, we don't need your services anymore. It was an amicable exit, but it was a heartbreaking one because what we didn't realize was we had let that particular client become 50% of our revenues. So there was no risk management, right? And suddenly, when we lost that business for 6 months, we had to sort of really scramble our way. We had to sort of get new clients. And of course, it was a great learning lesson that, never again will we allow one client to go beyond 15 or 20% of our revenues. So the whole element of risk management came in, right? So that was a big lesson. There was also a lesson in terms of, losing pitches, right? We thought, and this happens, every year, that we think this is our best effort, best pitch. But again, it makes you humble and to realize that, look, there are certain things in your control and there are certain things not in your control. We've lost some very good pitches, not because of anything else, but, because the client had other aspirations, or maybe our pitch was good, but our relationship was great. And that also, is a humbling opportunity. It sort of makes you realize that in life, like in sports, there are a lot of things not in your control. So focus on the process is what I always say. If you're playing, let's say, soccer, or if you're playing cricket, it's a ball sport. Look at the ball. You focus on what's in your control. When you have the ball, can you dabble and dribble and can you control that? But, when it's not in your control, don't fret too much about it because you can't do much, right? But the biggest lesson is whether you win or lose, celebrate, feel bad, but next day, come back to your practicing ground, focus on your process, focus on, the smaller things of nutrition and exercise, things that, don't, it doesn't feel that nutrition and exercise and sleep have a direct correlation, but we all know that they do. They're part of the process. So yeah, that's been my lesson over my 20-year corporate and startup career.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And as you said, you always, even if you fail, you always learn something, right?
That's right. In fact, there is no failure. It's you either win or you learn. And if
that's
you have
what they
that
say.
mindset, that's what they say. And I believe in that cliche. So much is about mindset and mental strength, right? Today, I'm glad that there's so much literature around mental health and mental strength. And it's important because you look at, again, the best sporting clubs and the best athletes, probably they are at par when it comes to skill set. but it's who can hold their nerves, who can show up, who can manage crisis better. And I think that's something, again, I tell a lot of athletes and my colleagues and peers in the startup world is it's really about doing your basics well, and it's about mindset because everything else follows from there on.
Approaching the end here, the last question that I ask everyone is, if you could choose the next guest on this podcast, who do you think that I should talk to?
That's a great one. I don't know if you've already done so, but the two that come to my mind, one is Sir Alex Ferguson. Again, it's just phenomenal, right? I mean, to see the legacy and the way a gentleman has managed a club and from taking it from. It's not just the wins, right? It's the way those wins have come. It's the way he has ensured that he's been able to manage some of the top talents. Doesn't matter how big a superstar is, whether it's a Beckham or whoever, but especially for a team sport, how do you sort of ensure that ultimately you make sure the team wins? It's an institution, it's a process. You're inviting youth, you're creating something that's sustainable, that lasts beyond your tenure. So that's one. And the other is, especially if you're looking from in South Asia and India, there's an athlete, who captures my attention so much. It's a gentleman called Neeraj Chopra who won India's first gold medal at the Tokyo 2020 in athletics. India's won golds in hockey, in team sports, but never. And here is a young talent who comes from northern India, exposed to javelin throw, which is not very popular in India. He starts javelin throw practice with sugarcane in the field because he couldn't afford javelin. And that's how his journey began. And over the last decade, he's obviously become a rock star now. He's been not just winning at the Olympic, but various other diamond leagues. And what's amazing is he is with every tournament, he's improving his personal best. And that's what's exciting to me is consistency, keeping the hunger alive, and inspiring a generation in a country, in a sport where javelin is not a big sport in India. But I think to me, his rise, it symbolizes the rise of talent from non-urban India, from the belts that don't really speak English that much, who don't have too many career opportunities. It makes you believe that whether you want to be a sports person or not, you can achieve and you can live up to your potential. So yeah, these two come to my mind if you can ever interview them.
Yeah, that's great names, and both of them would be fantastic guests. Prantik, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Sports Management Podcast.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Marcus, for engaging me in this beautiful discussion. Not just about sports and the athletes, but about what goes on beyond the field, the people who manage. And again, kudos to all of these people who make sure that we get to see sports, experience sports. It's such, like I said, I'll end by saying that, in life, there are very, very few things that are as exciting and inspiring as live sports. Kudos to the athletes, their families, and the people who manage the show behind the shows. And kudos to you for doing shows like this, which bring such wonderful content about sports and the business of sports. So thank you so much, Marcus, for having me, and wish everyone all the best.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. Also, feel free to leave a comment about what you thought about this episode. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com or hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @sportsmpodcast.